Hello and welcome to Golf FM. This is a test to see if I should change from my current iron, the I530, to the new I240. Brand new iron out from Ping, and I'm going to put it up against my existing club. Now, if you know anything about my choice in irons, it took me a while to get to this. I went through Blueprint S, which just was way too hard to hit for me, and I always have hankered after something a little bit more playerish, a little bit smaller, a little bit sleeker, thinner top line. I'm settled for I530 because it actually performs so well, hits it so far, so forgiving, and really do like the looks. I would love them to be a little bit more compact, but you can't have everything, or can you? Let's have a look at the I240. So the I240 has just come out, and I know that it's not a replacement or a rival really for the i530, but in my mind, I'm going to be thinking about this club. I'm going to be thinking, okay, I know it's weaker lofted than my i530. I know it probably won't go quite as far, but if I power spec it, can I get it up close to the same distance? And how does it feel? And how does it perform in terms of maintaining distance when I don't hit the ball properly? So in terms of this club, this is the replacement for the I230. And I agree with quite a lot of the people that I've seen reviews of this before on, that it's not an improvement in terms of looks on the I230. The I230 has a sleeker, less fussy design. It's classier possibly. And the I230 is a popular club for really good players. It has a solid face and build design. It's not one of these cavity back, springy face clubs, which the i530 is, all enclosed. It's just a sheet bit of metal, so you don't get any of the potential flyer action that you might get with a player's distance iron, a hollow-bodied iron. But to be honest, I've talked about this before, and I don't really notice that happening, especially in the amount of golf that I actually play. I mean, I'm a club pro and I'm supposed to play a lot, but actually the reality of the situation is that I don't play a lot. And so when I do go out, I'm not well practiced and I'm not able to always hit the centre of the club. And I find that if I slightly miss-hit one, I've got a fly in here, by the way, so you might see me going like this all the time. If it was a wasp, I'd just be running, but it's a fly, so I should be brave enough to just swat it away. But anyway, where was I? The i530 lets me off with a slightly bad strike that might still be online, but it gets to the front of the green, whereas I was finding the Blueprint S was just dropping 20 yards short of a target, and even worse than that on some of the long iron shots. It's just embarrassing how much shorter it was. So I just couldn't play with that anymore, even though I really liked the looks of it. I230 never really did it for me in terms of looks, but I have to say that when I see the new one looks like it's slightly confusing. It almost looks like a standard kind of cavity back iron. A lot of irons these days are going for this enclosed look, and it almost looks like a blade, whereas this looks more like just a traditional, fairly straightforward cavity back iron. Not a big cavity, but just a standard cavity back iron. Whereas the I230 looked a little bit different. It was all a little bit more enclosed looking. You couldn't see the cavity quite as much, and it just has that slightly better player look to it, I thought, even though I didn't find it particularly interesting. So I don't really know what the thinking was behind I240 going to this kind of look when, you know, this has been potentially quite successful, I would have thought, and then you go and change it to something like that. So I don't think, although I think this is a nice looking club, I'm not so sure it was the right direction to go in when you already had that as your base model. But we'll see how it goes. It's the same loft, same specs as the old I230, which means it was 33 degrees standard loft. I'm going to be using it in 31.5 to give it half a chance against my i530, which is 29 degrees. This is all for a 7 iron, by the way. So if we look at the looks of i530 against i240, because that's what this test is about. In terms of the head size, initially, it almost looks fractionally smaller in overall size, and the sole width is a little bit narrower. In terms of the top line, what does it look like? Well, you can definitely see the blade looks a little bit shorter. I mean, you're only talking fractions with these things. I used to have like a little measuring device to get the exact measurements of how much shorter and how much thinner the top line was. The top line thing was a nightmare to try and get right because it's all rounded and beveled and it's difficult to decide where you take the measurement from. So I've just gone back to looking at it from and the I240 looks a little bit smaller, not much, just a fraction smaller in terms of heel to toe length. And then top line, I just swap them over because sometimes you can get an optical illusion. There's not a lot in the top line. I don't think there's any difference in terms of, I don't look at the I240 and think that's a way thinner top line. I don't at all. It looks very similar. There looks a little bit more loft on the I240 because there's about 2.5 degrees. What was it? 29 to 31.5. So it's what's that? It's 2.5 degrees. I was right. Trust yourself on maths, Fraser. Just trust yourself. In terms of the height of the blade, the I240 almost looks higher, which might mean the center of gravity is a little bit higher than the I530, which would kind of make sense that you were hitting it fractionally lower than the I530. Having said that, the I240, one of the things they're talking about is the fact that it does launch a little bit higher. It's got a little elastomer insert in the middle, which is supposed to be the back panel here as well as lighter than in the I230. So they've been able to move weight around a little bit. Discretionary weight it's called. So it's weight that they can put in exactly the position they want to do certain things. And they wanted to make this more forgiving than the I230, which I'm sure it will be, because they wouldn't have brought it out and said that if it wasn't. It will be tested on robots. And the launch is a little bit higher supposedly, and especially in the long irons, these are supposed to be a bit more forgiving than the old club, the I230. I don't actually have any of those. Not a big enough YouTuber yet to get given things like a long iron as well as a mid iron. Maybe one day. Maybe if you keep subscribing and watching these videos, I might. So I'm going to hit this first. Remember, it's 31.5, it's power spec, and see what that does. Now, power spec, if you're worried about what it does to the bounce angle and that sort of thing, I've got a power spec U-wedge in my I530 set, and I've used power spec in demo clubs as well, and I really don't notice any difference. I don't think it moves it enough for you to really bother about. Certainly not for me. So I wouldn't worry about that. If you are thinking of doing I240 in power spec, you'll be fine. Anything else to say? Shaft I'm going to be using is the same. It's an NS Pro Modus 105 stiff. It's not exactly what I use. I use the Dynamic Gold 105 S300, but it's not far off. And you'll see a little cutout on the back of my I530. That's how this I240 will come as well. It's just the demo clubs don't have the little cutout. I would imagine it's to do with the fact that I can screw this shaft out, that they can't do the little cutaway in the demo club. Right, am I finished now? Is that everything? Oh, I suppose the last thing is the I240 and the I530 are the same price, which is a little bit strange, I thought, because the I240 does not have a forged face. It has elastomer in it and that sort of thing to try and make it feel softer, which I'm going to find out soon. But the expensive bit, I always thought, in the I530 was putting in the forged face insert, which made it feel a bit softer. They don't have that in this, and yet it's still £12.49 for 7 irons. So no advantage on price in the I240. It's going to have to be on performance and feel. So let's have a look and see what it does. Right, so I'm going to try and hit about 10 decent ones. Won't leave any complete shockers in there, but they're not all going to be absolutely pured. Want to see what the level of distance retention on bad shots are like. So forgiveness, which is what that is. And it might take me a little bit longer because I've been away on holiday for the last wee while. Haven't hit that many shots. Hit a few today, but not that many. So give me a break. Lisbon area, actually, if you're interested. Nice. If you've not ever been to that part of the world, I thoroughly recommend it. Lisbon area, Sintra and Estoril, Cascais, amazing, really nice. Where's my tan? Nah, I don't tan very easily. Sorry, lily white Scottish person. Right, let's go. Looks, by the way, looks really good at address, but doesn't look incredibly little or anything. It looks still a decent size, even though my I530 is bigger than it. That felt quite good. It maybe wasn't 100% right, and it's going a little bit right as well. 164, carry 177, and the descent angle's 44. Spin, I obviously didn't hit 100% because the spin's quite low at 4.8. Would expect something with 31.5 degrees to spin a wee bit more than that. Oh, that felt nice. That was properly hit. A little bit right, but it's a nice crack, solid crack. It's a nice feel. You're not going to be disappointed at all with the feel of this if you go for a set of these. That elastomer they've put in the back obviously does something, because that's gone 171. Another good shot. What's going on? Even getting a wee club twirl, a wee bit right, a wee bit quick to say good shot there. 166, 179. It's good though, it's a good shot. I could do with hitting a few sort of iffy ones. I wonder if I can manage that. Yeah, there you go. A little bit out to the right, enough a little bit off the bottom of the club. So that should be interesting to see if it holds on to this distance. 166 in the air, yeah, so it's holding on to the distance pretty well. It wasn't a terrible strike. Yeah, not as good as a couple of the early ones, but not terrible, like 7 out of 10 or something. 170 again, 182, 83. I'm quite impressed so far with its ability to hang on to distance, which is really what forgiveness is all about. You know, I would be hitting, as I've said, that Blueprint S would have just been going nowhere with some of these strikes. Oh, that's an absolute shocker. Heavy clods of earth would have come up. We've been on ground there. Still went 151 in there. I'm taking it out. Even that was not terrible, considering how bad it was hit. That was better. Out to the right again. Again, blaming this on Lisbon and beers. 171, 185. Heavy, not nice. But then it's reasonably straight, and it's like, what would that go on the golf course? 152, that's still going to be quite short, so we're going to take that out. Felt good. A little bit out to the right, not terrible. 169 in the air, 181. And all the other figures not too bad. Get a higher, slightly higher launch than I normally get, but then that's to do with the loft. 31.5 as opposed to 29. That felt good. I could use it no bother and feel, and I could use it no bother looking at it from the top. I'm not as excited about it from that angle, but you don't hit it with that angle. 172, 185, and nice and fairly straight as well. 45 descent angle, 18 degree launch, that was a better launch. Good strike again. 165, 177, everything else okay. 20 degree launch there. Not as well hit, and a bit shoved out to the right. Interesting to see what that does carry wise. Still got 165 out of it. 179, that's good forgiveness. And that's 10. So I think we leave it there and get on to the I530 so we can all go home and have our tea. So I530, what's my first impression when I put it down? First impression when I put it down is it's longer, but the top line is almost verging on thinner. Is that possible? Oh, no, you can't say it's thinner, but it's no thicker, absolutely no thicker. But it's definitely longer heel to toe, and that's the bit I would love if I530 could just be a little bit compact, a little bit more compact. But then would it be as forgiving for me? I don't know, because I hit it all over the face. Right, 7 iron, 29 degree, I530, forged face, hollow bodied iron. So it's a springier, thinner face. Sounded sort of louder almost, which is usually a sign it doesn't feel soft. Felt that was a decent strike, 181 for 200 and a 42 degree descent angle. But it's gone quite a bit further. So it's not going to be coming down at exactly the same angle, because if I was hitting at the distance I was with the 7 iron of the I240, it'd be using an 8 iron in the I530 set. So it would be coming down more acute angle. Right, anyway. And that was right and not particularly well hit. Long way right. See what it does for carry. 175, 190, so it held on to the distance pretty well. No offset really to speak of in these clubs either. Didn't feel like there was anything to worry about offset on that, and there's virtually nothing on this as well. It's one of the least offset player's distance irons I've seen, and I don't like offset if you didn't pick that up. Yeah, I was trying to save it with my hands, it still went right. Not amazing. 176 in the air for 180 and 190. Didn't hit it 100%. Heavy. Not an amazing batch so far. 173 for 196 though. So again, that's what it does. I'm going to take that out because the spin was silly because of the heavy contact. There should be no silly spin figures here. Although arguably a lot of my spin figures are silly. That felt good. It's a different feel. Like I never thought that this is the softest feeling player's distance club I've ever hit. That's 182 for 200 again. The things I liked about this were the fact that it was the least offset and it was incredibly forgiving. It wasn't because it was the absolute softest feeling. I think that the Wilson Dynapower is actually one of the softest ones. The AI200 Callaway is softer, I would say, and actually the Callaway Elite is arguably softer with those amazing microspheres that it has. If you haven't seen any of those reviews, you should watch one of them on the Callaway Elite because it's unbelievable for a cast club. It's a little bit too offset in the long irons and stuff for me, but a really nice club. So that was good. Good figures, good distance. 14 I've hit. That was off the bottom. Not perfect, but I could quite easily hit every single shot like that when I'm out on a golf course. 180 in the air, 194. So I didn't lose a lot hitting it like that. And that's what I need, unfortunately. I wish I didn't need that, but I do need that. Yeah, not 100%. Managed to stop that from going miles right. 183, 1204. 41 degree descent. So I'm not, because I turned the face over a little bit on that, so it brought spin down a bit, but not so much there. 16 degree launch, the whole thing was just a bit lower. Bit off the bottom again, hung out to the right a little bit. 183 in the air though again, one for 200. I mean, that's just unbelievable forgiveness and distance. They're astounding, these things, when you first hit them, I always think. Do you know what the sound on this is? Kind of louder and smackier in here than that I240. So the elastomer really is doing a lot. You can maybe chuck a wee bit of elastomer in the I530 next time, Ping. It's still good. I mean, look at the distance. 183, 199 again, 44 degree descent angle. But it's definitely, you know, if you like a softer feel and a noise, then I think the I240 almost does feeling softer than this. I did not expect that. Not that nice out to the right. That's a sort of not a brilliant strike, but see how far it goes. 175, 191. Still, I think we'll keep it in. Not proud of that, but it's not embarrassingly bad. So this could be the last one. That was off the bottom a little bit, but not that bad. Quite straight. 181, 195. So that'll do, I think. We'll have a look at the stats now and see how it all adds up and see if I'm changing my irons or anything like that. Okay, so first look at the figures. Not digested them yet, let's just go through them. Speed off the face, 116 for the I240 and 121 for the I530. A wee bit of a difference there. Don't always see a lot of difference in ball speed, but that is two different styles of iron. You've got hollow bodied fast face technology as against just a big slab of steel, which if you're being a purist and you're playing for your living and that sort of thing, you maybe don't want to take the chance that a springy thin face club is going to suddenly throw a hot one out on you. You want to know that it's always going to go the same distance if you hit it a certain way. I personally don't notice any detrimental issues with springy faces. I don't notice flyers. Some people do. I know that. They've put that in the comments. Personally, I don't. You can write in about that if you want, but I'm sticking to what I think, which is that it doesn't make that much of a difference. I get just as many flyers when I just get a bad lie. I get a flyery lie. I don't suddenly feel like I'm hitting really long ones when I'm just in a normal position. Anyway, so that's a big difference. 19 to 18 on launch, so pretty similar. Only a little bit higher on the I240, and it's 2.5 degrees weaker. So you might have thought you'd seen a wee bit more of a difference. What you do see a difference on though is the spin. 5295 as against 4.5 basically on the I530. Again, it's lower lofted and all the rest of it, but balancing that, descent angle 46 on the I240 and 44 on the Ping, so on the I530. So the I530 is not that bad considering how sort of aggressive and strong it is. The descent angle's still going to help you. 45 is a decent one. If you can get anywhere near that, it's going to stop reasonably quickly, coupled to some spin as well. But that I240 is definitely going to stop quicker than the I537 iron is. But then, will you even be hitting an I537 iron when the carry is 168 as opposed to 180? So it's 12 yards more on the same club, so you would be hitting an 8 iron. So then suddenly the spin figure on the I530 goes up and the descent angle gets more acute and it starts to look a little bit more like the I247 iron. But you are hitting, yes I know it's stronger lofted, but you're hitting a slightly shorter club, and you're also hitting in your head an easier club to hit, an 8 as opposed to a 7. Neither are that difficult in your head, but when you get up the ranks to 6s and 5s, then that does make a difference psychologically. Anyway, I know there's people out there that feel very strongly differently about that than I do, but I still think hitting a slightly shorter shafted club means that you hit the middle of the club more often, and psychologically it's better because you're hitting less club in your head. Some people play with these clubs and don't even know the lofts. They just go and get fitted and think they're absolutely brilliant and don't know the lofts and think, oh, I'm hitting 1-2 clubs less every time. How confident do I feel going into every shot? So there's that to consider. The total distance 181 to 196, so obviously a big difference there as well. The speed on the swings were pretty close together, 84 and 85. That'll just be the batch a little bit. It's not like it suddenly was miles different. I swung pretty much the same. So that's that then, eh? What do I think? From that, I'm not changing, is the quick answer. Looks wise, I wouldn't be in a rush to change. If the I240 had been incredibly beautiful and nice compared to the I530, I might have been tempted to keep going with this and try it outside and see if I could make it work, because I think it will be more forgiving. I did think that that was holding on to the ball speed pretty much just as well as the I530 was, but I'd be going down a club. There's no two ways about it. So I'd be hitting an extra club every time pretty much with this I240 than I would with the I530, and I don't really want to do that. I don't want to go backwards as I see it. It would be psychologically damaging for me. I'm already a nervous wreck when I'm playing golf, so I don't want to make that any worse. So no, I will not be changing. I do think it's a very nice club, however, and if you've got a set that's similarly lofted, 31.5 or even the 33, that this comes in as standard, you want something that's a bit more forgiving, then I do think it's got a place, because it might well surprise some people how easy and friendly that is to hit at that sort of loft of 31.5 or 33. So yeah, it's got a place. Slightly strange in terms of the way they changed the look and went down that route. I don't think it's a massive improvement. It's, to a lot of people, it's not as nice as the old one, and it doesn't look nicer than the i530 in my head either. So if one day they could make the i530 just a little bit compact, if they could do maybe like an i530 Cadet like that, so it's like a glove with small fingers, that would be ideal. i530 Cadet I would use. So yeah, that's where I am. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments and I'll get back to you. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.